What we want to talk about today is all things capital raising. We've got Jacques. Let's call you co-host from now on. Let's do it. Depending on the type of business you have, it's going to require money. And so the first question I want to kind of riff on, Jacques, is what type of business should capital raise?
Important to kind of understand what you want to get out of the capital raising. If you're capital raising for an idea, I think you're giving away too much in that early stage to actually make it worthwhile.
That 15% of the 100 million, well, now it's like a $15 million decision. At some point, you're going to continually get diluted. So that's who should capital raise, who shouldn't capital raise.
The important thing with capital raising is if you don't have money, you figure out clever ways to get things done.
Have you had the discipline of how to work with money before you go and throw cash in your bank? From our context, it's like, I get excited about this one, Jacques.
The key standouts for me is, can you communicate the initial vision?
Let's say you're doing a virtual and you're doing a screen share of your virtual. If you have 1 million tabs open, what are the psychological subliminal messages I'm sending to that person?
As a startup founder, immerse yourself in that world and actually go and meet people. Partner with someone that can help you. He partnered with a VC at a lower valuation, but it was because of what they could do for him internationally.
Well, I'm jazzed up, everybody. Who should I raise capital from?
Welcome to the Founders Lab. In this series, I want to get really deep with other founders and we want to talk specifics about business. One of the challenges I have when we're interviewing someone is we stay at the shallow level. But truly to be able to help and create value, I need to go deep on specific topics. So I'm getting the best of the best founders and we're going to get and share insights that are going to be able to help you in your business.
Welcome back to the Founders Lab. We're going to go deep on business topics. Today, we've got Jacques. Let's call you co-host from now on. Let's do it.
Sounds good.
What we want to talk about today is all things capital raising. And I think what's important for the audience today is what we're going to be discussing is not from a position of we did it all in the beginning so we know all of the right answers, because the reality is we bootstrapped. So a lot of our opinions are going to be formulated based off we didn't capital raise. However, over the last 2 years, post-sale, been doing a lot of learning about capital raising, the do's and don'ts. And so I kind of want to dive into that today. To form a bit of context for everybody, I think everybody knows what a capital raise is, right? But the reality is, depending on the type of business you have, it's going to require money. And so sometimes that's going to be, you can stitch together some money from some credit cards, some, drawing down a home loan, whatever it is. But other times it needs to have hyper growth and you're going to have to go to the market, whether it be friends, family, venture capital, et cetera, to get cash in the bank. And so the first question I want to kind of riff on, Jacques, is, what type of business should capital raise?
I think something that's got explosive growth and a fast, clear way to revenue and profitability. You can capital raise to kind of pour gasoline on that fire. So I think if you've got a very clear path and a very clear strategy, that's where capital raising can really help you extend that. If you're capital raising for an idea, I think you're giving away too much in that early stage to actually make it worthwhile. So I think people really need to think about this is you are really giving away something in the capital raising. You're bringing someone into your business early. You're bringing someone in that might point you in directions that you might not want to go in. So that's something you have to consider. That the check's great, but what are they getting out of you? So you need to think about those things early on.
Apart from bringing someone else in the business, what else do you think about when you're saying giving away?
Well, you're giving away like direction, control. Like someone's not coming with a blank check and saying go and have fun. They're going to steer you. They're going to influence you, even if it's just a distraction. You need to be reporting back every month, right? You want to focus on what you can focus on. You don't want to have a distraction of I've got to do an investor update, every month now. That's time that you could be spent on something else. So I think it's important to kind of understand what you want to get out of the capital raising. Do you need the money right now? People sometimes think like this, like I need $1 million a year in salaries. But actually, let's break it down to what you need per week. Let's break it down what you need per month. It's actually a lot smaller chunk. You don't need to raise $1 million and just put it in the bank, right?
Yes.
You might want to just get through the next 3 months. Can you finance that in another way? So that's kind of what I think about when I think about capital raising. It's what is the trade-off? And is that trade-off worthwhile because you're going to see the growth at the other end?
That's really good. So let me add a couple of elements to that for the trade-off for the people listening. They might be like, I've never done that before, or what did I trade off? I wasn't sure. I've done it. So here are some of the trade-offs that is going to happen. First off, the earlier and further away from revenue you're going to be trading off is a smaller amount of money for a larger portion of your business, right? So in the early stage, you might have pre-revenue, you're going to raise at a 1 million valuation. You get, let's say, 150 grand, 15% of your business. If you have high and utter and total conviction, and you're like, I know that this is going to go to a $50 million business or a $100 million business, and you truly believe that, like deep in your soul, then you start to think, okay, that 15% of the 100 million, well, now it's like a $15 million decision, right? That doesn't mean it's the right way or wrong way, but it's just something to think about. The next in terms of trade-offs to think about is what are the terms that are baked into that? So you're kind of alluding to that is the terms are not just percentage of equity for cash. The terms are, the venture capital might have preferential shares. So you've got things like, I'm going to get 150 grand. They have preferential shares that if your business sells for a valuation that's not greater than what you've raised at, they get the first portion of cash. And so it's almost like you're paying back a loan, right? So there's these different terms that then make it a lot scarier. And if you do have a long runway, this is something you and I are tossing around at the moment with the new venture, is like if it has a long runway and you're like, yeah, I need this 150 grand or $1 million, at some point you're going to continually get diluted. And if you continue to dilute with these preferential shares, there is a world in which, and it's happened many times, where you're almost no longer at the helm of your business. But the part I really like that you said is the focus that is required to be a startup is intense, and you need to work on what is the maximum. Let me re-say that, is you need to focus on what are the things that create the biggest impact, and sitting down and doing your investor presentation once per month or once per quarter to say, these are the numbers this was at. Yes, it's good to know, but could I have worked on a product? Could I have worked on more sales? Could I have brought more revenue through the door? Which one is more important? And I think that's a really good point, is like the distraction from the actual execution of the business. So that's who should capital raise, who shouldn't capital raise.
I think there's certain businesses that just don't need capital. So these are businesses that can get to revenue very quickly. So service-based, anything that's service-based where you're an agency model, you don't really need to capital raise because you're getting paid straight away. You don't need explosive growth. It's kind of like a per client basis. I don't think you need to capital raise at all in those kind of businesses. You can get to profitability just by doing the work. I think also it's the important thing with capital raising is if you don't have money, you figure out clever ways to get things done.
No,
right?
I love that.
So if you do get that money thrown at you, you patch over problems with the money. You can pay for salaries to do things that otherwise, if you couldn't, you're going to find a different solution. Especially in this day and age, you can find solutions to your problems. If you have money, it's kind of like a laziness. You fall back, you've got a safety net, and it doesn't create that fire. So I think it's the type of business and the type of person that should avoid it. If they can get to somewhere without it, it's worthwhile, because what you're going to do is you're creating leverage for yourself. So when you do have a product, you do have an MVP, you do have customers, you have revenue, well, now you go and capital raise, it's a completely different story. Now you can dictate your terms. Like, so the first thing that comes to mind for this is like Canva.
Oof.
Okay, so
shout outs. Mel, I know you're listening. Come on here.
Canva set the terms at every capital raise round because they have an explosive product. They can show revenue. They've got raving fans in the business. It's once you get to that point that you can now start to dictate. You're not taking their money. They're like begging you. They're saying, please take our money. You're not asking them. It's the other way around. So I think that's a really important thing to call out early on. And
I'll add to that, right? Because there's a favorite story I like to share, and I'm going to share it today because why not? So just for everybody knowing, today where we sit here, Canva is worth $50 billion. Canva has Melanie Perkins, CEO, and Cliff, and one other person on their board. So in terms of dictating terms, they made the terms of the deal in the early days was like, we don't necessarily need you. And so if you want this cash, you've got to work in our way. And so they made sure that their shares are, the preferential, they made sure they're not diluted, and they're the ones at the board to be able to make these really long-term strategic decisions. And I spoke to a person in the VC world, and he said to me, I met many people, many VCs in the early days of Canva 6 years ago that had said to me, those terms of Canva were so aggressive. We decided not to invest. And he goes, you know what they are today, Frank? And I go, what? And he goes, poor. So, so hopefully that illustrates our point. So one thing I want to add there, which I think is really critical, is, a lot of people will think about the business type, which is, the first thing we touched on, which is the type of business. But I think what you nailed there is like the type of person. And so to really boil that down is like, have you had, and people have heard me talk about this before, have you had the discipline of how to work with money before you go and throw cash in your bank? So when you're, from our context, is like when we had a 10 grand credit card, I sold my DJ decks, you and I sold our apartments in these different stages of our business. When you're making decisions on a salary, at the time, 60, 65 grand, you're going to make sure that that's the right person. You're getting the right out of that thing. When we're going to go and purchase a printer, because that's that was our business back in the day, is like, we're going to make sure that that's the perfect printer that's going to actually be able to create cash, because every dollar counted. Like literally, we joke and laugh. We ate tuna and rice for years. Why? Because it was about, we could figure out that it was like $3.20 for lunch. Or, you and I bought a coffee machine because we worked out, we're paying, at the time, $3.50 for a coffee. If we buy this coffee machine, in 6 months we've paid for it. In a year, Jacques, we have made $400. Like, come on, brother. But like, you only make those decisions because you know the pain of what it means when you don't have the money in your bank. And I think now when we go to our next venture, is like, well, we know the discipline of how to make a dollar go. Therefore, we're happy to add the fuel to the fire. Yep. So if you don't yet have the discipline, think twice. Do you need the capital in day one?
Yeah. There are other levers you can pull on. Like you can employee share schemes straight away. Like that's the first thing that comes to my mind. If you've got good people and you want to incentivize them, those are the people that can get equity in the business. Rather than getting venture capital out, getting big salaries for these people, you can get people along the journey really early on. And this is something that we unlocked straight away.
Yes.
If you find good talent, they get equity and that helps you drive to your next goal. Instead of bringing in venture cap and then you're paying big salaries, the people that are with you in the early days, you can actually incentivize and get them in.
Yeah, right. That's super, super interesting. Just give us 1 second. You're listening to the podcast, and I'm here to tell you to follow it.
And that's like raising capital, right? Instead of getting a huge pay rise, I can give you equity, right? So the costs are low and the output's high. You've brought on a partner. It's exactly the same thing, but now they're in the business, they're in the journey with you. So those are things you can start to like look at straight away instead of bringing in outside money.
That's really good. And we had a couple, like you touched on, we had a couple of examples of that where people, it was like, what would you rather, us to increase your salary or take shares? And these are people that were in like year one of Real Hub, and people made a decision. There's people that did a 5% stake, a 2.5% stake, and they kept their salaries at 50 grand for like 6 years, which at the time, so were our salaries, right? And hey, at the end of the exit, like ended up with multiple millions, but like you've got a person that's like fully invested. Really good. What about the right time to do so? Anything else we need to touch on there? Like when is the right time to think about capital raising?
I think you just want to be in the most control that you can have in the situation. So the further along you are, the better. The further mature your product is, the better. If you've got customers, you've got raving fans, that's even better. So the more things you can put in your favor, I think the better. If you've just got an idea and you're going to the market to get capital, you're going to give away such a huge chunk of your business. You don't even know if it's going to work. But if you can go and say, we've got customers, we've got growth month on month, we've got a raving fan base here that are using the product, there's stickiness there, a VC is going to throw money at you. So you really want to control the terms in as much as you physically can. And that might be at month 6 in the business. It might be at year 6 in the business. So it's really once you start to understand that and that momentum, that then you go, okay, let's put some gasoline on this, because that's what the equity is, right?
So it's the context. I think that's a really good point. It's like there isn't a defined, it's a month, it's 6. It's like it's contextual to your business. Because one of the challenges, like, and you and I have encountered this a few times, right, is we didn't live in that world, which was capital raising. So our thing was around like our excitement in the business was like we landed this new deal. And the capital raise was through the new revenue that was coming through and seeing that grow. And that was what got us excited. There's like this new world that we've seen recently where like the lies have opened up and gone like, people get excited about their next capital raise. They come back and they celebrate like, oh, I just did this next round. We got a 15 mil val, 25 mil val. And you're like, what are the fundamentals? Like how much have you actually grown? Like how big is your burn rate? And your burn rate is like how much cash are you spending compared to how much you're earning? Like, it's a great example. Like a milk run. Sorry, guys. Is like where you raise, and we've seen many examples of this where you raise like $50 million and you just burn through the cash. And you can imagine that those founders, and I don't know them, I'm sure they're amazing people, shout out to you for listening, is you can imagine through those moments they were getting come back super excited. You get like almost like an inflated or artificial sense of where your business is at. Because you come home, I can imagine like the dinner that night, like slapping hands, like, yes, we just did a 25 mil raise. And the next year, and you're kind of like, you're almost like calculating your paper worth, like you're like, yeah, dog, like I'm worth 25 mil now. And it's like, but there comes a time where either the capital markets change. And so we saw that recently where it was like the everything bubble. And then all of a sudden now all the venture caps and the private equity, they all want to see you make a profit. And you're like, oh shit, no, I haven't been doing that. Like, look at this graph. It says lots more users. And they're like, yeah, but look at that graph, lots more spending. And so not sure where I went with that tangent, but who really cares? Yeah. So let's talk about, okay, it's the right time in your business, and now we want to prepare for the pitch. We've recently gone and seen 11 people pitch on a demo day. What are the key things you think about when it's about preparing for a pitch?
Okay, so the key standouts for me is, can you communicate the initial vision, right? Is it consistent with what you're delivering to your customers? Can you communicate where you want to be? Because that's what a VC wants to see. It's like, where is this money going to get you to? Can you show me a clear path to it?
Yes.
Not like, just give me money and we'll figure out what we need to do. It's like, I need, if we need to raise $3 million, what am I going to spend that on? Straight away. How quickly am I getting a return on that? That's also important. So we'll see this a lot where people are like, I'm going to raise this, and they've got this big dream to be the next new unicorn. What are you actually going to do in the short term? What are you going to do in the medium term? As much information as you can give me, and bake it into the historical data. We want to go from 3 sites to 5. We want to increase production. If you can give us like tangible things that this money is going to be spent for, it creates really compelling. Like, oh, that's obvious. You need to get a bigger factory. Perfect. Well, that's where the money's going to go, and it's going to allow you to produce 10 times more of whatever the product is you're producing. That's what you want to see, instead of like, we're going to spend on marketing. We're going to spend on advertising. We're going to get growth in international markets. Like, so vague.
Yes.
That people don't understand like what's the outcome of that. It's like you're hoping in a prayer. Like, if I see people, I want to spend money on marketing, you kind of turn around the other way, because it's like, you haven't actually got product market fit yet. You're just trying to throw money at a problem, get a bunch of ads. You're going to spend a shitload of money. But you don't actually know what's going to come out the other side of that. You don't actually know, right? Your customer acquisition costs are huge. Like, it's not appealing as an investor. If you can see like very clearly defined what this money is going to, okay, that's extremely appealing.
So I'll do a slight counteract to that. And it's, if the money is for marketing, you've proven you know how to spend the money on marketing, and you've proven your cost to acquire a customer now is quite low. And again, it's same as what you're saying, which is it's a clear pathway, then it's fine. But if it's like, it's like, hey, we're going to expand, your example, we're going to expand to the US and we need $2 million. Okay, cool. We're going to go do all the marketing. Well, we haven't even yet proven that is going to get a good return on the marketing channels we've chosen. But I think it's really important to, the way you're articulating there is like, the person on the other side, you have to think from their standpoint. And how you got to think from an investor standpoint is all around, this is where the capitalist pig comes back out. It's all around a return on capital. So they have to go like this. I've got X number of dollars. If I put the dollars in the bank, I get, in today's environment, 5%. If I put it in a private debt fund, I might get 10% with low risk. Now, your asset, which I'm about to invest in, is riskier. So I need to see a greater return. So they want to see, when I put in the 100 grand, what is the return that I'm going to get for that? So they want to know that when you're putting the 100 grand in, that every dollar that they've deployed in your business, are you 1.5ing it? Ugh. You know what I mean? The pathway is clear, because the pathway then falls back into, okay, this is how my 100 grand is going to turn into, in venture cap, it's like, it needs to turn into like 1.5 million. Like, kind of realistically, if not more. And so you have to clearly define that. I think the next part of preparing for the pitch, and like I am, I get excited about this one, Jacques, is I am super passionate about the psychological elements, right? In the end of the day, a business is a collection of people, and you're going to be pitching to a person. We're not yet pitching to AI robots. And so we need to be like, what is the either I'm in a room, like what's the presence that I'm creating? What are the psychological subliminal messages I'm sending to that person? So let me get specific. If you rock up late, obvious, right? But there's more than that. If you rock up messy and like not groomed, what's the principle I'm showing that person? Like, I'm a bit of a mess. Okay. But again, obvious. Okay. Let's say you're doing a virtual and you're doing a screen share of your virtual, or you're in your meeting and you're doing a demo on the TV. If you have 1 million tabs open and your background has 1,000 random scattered things that you've saved, because at one time you saved the contract and you saved the thing. Okay. Now the person doesn't necessarily remember, oh, their background is a bit messy, but they get the sense of you like, something feels chaotic and I don't know what it is. And all of these small subliminal psychological things stack up, and the end is you leave and they're like, I'm not sure. Or if you don't speak with absolute conviction, it's like, do they believe in it? Like, you know, you're like really, you know, prime example, you brought up the other day, WeWork. You know, how much did he raise? It was like
Billions.
50 billion, something absurd, right? And it was kind of like a house of cards. But like what he did incredibly well was intoxicate you. Like you're like drowning in this, like, oh my gosh, this is going to revolutionize everything. Because like there's like a fine, this is where I get a bit weird, but like there's a fine balance between an incredible leader founder and a cult leader. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, it sounds weird. Everyone's like, oh no, Frank's going to don't drink his Kool-Aid. But it's like, you know, you have to be the ability to like influence and excite. Like when that person leaves the room, you got to be like, they got to be buzzing. And especially if you're doing a pitch to a VC, they're going to be doing like 10 of those in a day. So what's the feeling they're going to leave in the room, and how are they going to like truly remember you?
How do you practice that?
Oh, thank you, Jacques. Good. That wasn't in the notes.
If you're not good at that, how do you become good at that?
Yeah, good. Okay. Here's how I think about it. It's a principle of sales. So if you're in your business and you're like, no, I'm full tech. Great. Okay. Is there a conversation here that we have to have a co-founder or someone in the sales team? Okay. Let's say you don't have cash. Start learning sales, right? So for me, the first book is Robert Cialdini, Influence, and it talks about the psychological principles of selling. So one of them being like social proof. Someone back in cave people days ate a berry. They didn't die. You go, I'm going to eat a berry. Right? So social proof is like ingrained in us. So how do you demonstrate social proof in a pitch? Really simple. It's like, if you're talking through storytelling, so someone asks you, what about customer churn? And you go, oh, that's a really interesting question. You asked that. You know, I asked Steve from X influential customer, and I asked him these questions, and this was Steve's response. Oh, I absolutely love this product. I see myself being here for 5 years. I've told a story about a raving fan, so I'm making sure that you know there's social proof, but I could have just answered, no, churn's going to be fine. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, so there's ways in which you can do it through like a storytelling lens. So back to the question, how do you practice? So learn the principles and art of selling. Influence is like a 7-hour book, right? Like it's not a big thing to learn, but learn how to do that. The next is, I'm a big believer in communication. Obviously, everybody's like, yeah, Frank, you see a microphone in front of yourself all the time. But this is how I think about it. When we come up with a new business idea, you know, by the end of the day, we chat again and I'm like, yeah, I told 12 people. And you're like, Jesus, like chill out, bruh. But it's because I feel like every time I talk about it, you consolidate your thoughts and you get better and better at talking about it in a really crisp and clear manner. So when we first leave our mad scientist cave, when we come up with something and the first person I tell, it's like a bit sloppy. By the 10th person, and that 10th person is like, I got a 4-minute phone call with them and I got to quickly tell them, I like really concisely can get it out to the point. And through that practice is the repetition.
Yeah.
So it's just get your reps in. You know, like my example for us when we sold our business is, you know, me and Tim Dean, shout outs. I know you're not listening, but we would go for a 20K run. And Tim would throw at me, he'd go, okay, Frank, you do the presentation. So I would do the pitch for the business, verbatim words while running. And then he would go like, do it again. And then he would say, okay, they asked this about your revenue. Like, what's that revenue driver? And I would do it like while running. So now I'm like creating a simulation while I'm out in the bush at 6 a.m. So then when you're in the room, you've done it 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So I think, if I boil it all the way down, it's like learn the principles and get your reps in.
Yeah.
Because if you're going to be on the capital raising roadshow, you're going to be doing this a lot. So keep doing.
Love it. Fantastic.
Well, I'm jazzed up, everybody. Good. Who should I raise capital from?
I don't know. It's a good question. I think there's so many VCs out there these days, and they are kind of getting with it. They are becoming kind of cool. Like we were at the Start Mate night the other night, and I was like, the average age in this room is about 35. It's not what I pictured.
No.
I pictured a bunch of stuffy suits.
Yeah.
And this is a bit of a vibe. So I think as a startup founder, immerse yourself in that world and actually go and meet people.
Yes.
Because I don't know. You're going to get a feeling, you're going to get a vibe from a VC. The term sheets aside, you kind of want to partner with someone that can help you. Like a good example, we were speaking to a founder the other day. He partnered with a VC at a lower valuation, but it was because of what they could do for him internationally, right? And it's like you're going to give them a big chunk at a low val, but they're going to help explode your business because they've got all of the people, all the knowledge. So you really want to extract from them the help. You don't really want someone that's just going to be a backseat driver and you're going to take control. You want someone who can actually come in and get connections. They can help you. They can bring in good people. They can attract to your business based on their credibility in that industry. So if you're in a specific industry, go to the market leader in that industry. Like an obvious one is Blackbird because they've invested in Canva, right? Okay, well, you invested in Canva, like you've probably got everyone knocking at your door. But if you get interest from someone like that, okay, well, I can see what you've done. You know, there's a track record there. There's a lot to choose from, and it's a huge, it's like a minefield, right? There's going to be some duds, but get out there, start seeing them. Like VCs are everywhere. I was on Reddit the other day, and there's VCs jumping up on the entrepreneur Reddit forum, left, right, and center, because they're out there looking for deals. They're looking for businesses. So you can really it's an interview process. You can speak to them. You can tell them about your business. You can tell them about your problems. You can get the feedback from them because they just want to be your mate. Really, they want the deal. But you know what I mean? You can extract as much information as you want. So get in there, get involved, go to these meetups, go to these startup nights, get part of the community.
Okay, super good point what you just said there, right? Is because if you're going to do it, if you're going to do the capital raise, do it properly. And what you've just touched on there, the idea of like immersing yourself with more founders, immersing yourself with more VCs, what my brain straight away went to is leverage. So if you go and you're like, okay, I've decided on this one VC, I'm going to go pitch them. And now they're drilling you and asking questions and trying to bring down valuation. They might invest. You've got no leverage because there's no other cash coming from anywhere else. So you're going to be bending over and like whatever is that PC doesn't matter. You're going to be taking whatever deal you can get. The more you talk to, you and I had this example the other day. It's like we were, sharing the top level of our business, and the person said, "We'll be a VC," and like kind of jokingly said, like, "We don't really need cash." Now the reality is, we might need cash. But what have I just created in that room? I've created a really strong leverage point because now it's like, I'm not fighting for you, you're going to be fighting for me. And I want to see multiple of that to be able to go like, make sure that, again, I can dictate terms. Because you can't dictate terms if you've got one person there's the only option for cash, you're just doing whatever they're doing. So that's a really good point. The other part is the 80-20 rule. Here's the deal. Like, just like in almost everything, 80% of those people in that world are not going to be great. It's the law of averages means they will not be great. They will be good to average to terrible. There's a 20% of them which will be great to amazing to exceptional. So if you just choose the first one with no data points, you haven't spoken to other founders who've gone through the process with them, you haven't seen other exits and things, like you brought up Blackbird there because of Canva, social proof. Like straight away, social proof that it's worked. So you need to figure out what is going to work for you because, it is also the chemistry of the founder and that venture cap for long term. Like most of these people have funds and mandates from like 5 to 10 years. Yeah, the first check is cool. You'll probably burn through that in a year. Now you got to work with them for 10. So like choose wisely. The other part I would add there is there are other avenues to capital raise. So we've got, friends and family for those who can do that. Is you can go, like, when I say that, you probably hear the flinch because I'm like, I personally wouldn't. It's just because
I'll probably refund them if something went wrong.
Yeah, well, yeah, like if you can then do it and then refund. It's just the reason the friends and family, it's just purely for me is like, if the circumstances, the friends and family aren't just like strapped with cash and they got like money guns and they just come over that, okay, that's a different story. Go raise from them. If they're just your everyday Joe, like it's kind of a tenuous relationship. Like business is a reasonably high risk game, and so like if I'm asking you for cash because I can't get it anywhere else, it's like, I don't know. So I have a bit of a question mark. If you have high absolute conviction and you're like, no, I want to bring my friends and family on for the success, cool, amazing. But also there's like this concept, like as you grow your network and there's high net worth individuals. So the who for me is really important because it's also the strategic alignment. So to your point there is like, you might find someone that has cash, but they also have these other assets. So a great example, David Shane, OIF Ventures, shout out Dave, is when you go and work with them, it's like Dave can pick up the phone and call the CTO of ANZ as an example, right? So the cash is cool, awesome, 50 grand, amazing. But when I have a product that I can sell to the ANZ CTO and he can pick up the phone, that is like 10x or 100x worth that cash.
Exactly.
So the cash is not the cash is like one element to the raise.
Yeah, love it.
Boom. All right, Jacques, wrapping it up. I'm a first-time founder. Don't have cash. Should I raise?
I would say no. I think you can learn the lessons that you need to learn without money. It's going to actually make you a better business person. I would say no. The first time you do it with your own money. Try and get as far as you physically can get through the sweat of your brow and your own cash. So I know that's probably controversial, hot take, but don't raise money because you're going to learn a lot of things without money. And that's like going to help you. That's going to actually help you later on. So that's my hot take, but I don't know what you'd say.
Firstly, I'd say that's rude to people without brows, but that's okay. No, I agree. I think the principle is more important. And yes, like how long you can take it might only be 6 months, but you're going to get a lot more creative, and you're going to learn how to squeeze the penny, and it'll put you in a far better position when you're going to go raise. Founder Lab out. How good?
How good?
Done.